Thousands of demonstrators gather for a second night in Madrid. Hundreds of police surround the Spanish parliament. Yes, it's today that Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy unveils the new budget. More cuts, higher taxes, more pain for Spaniards. Let's get straight to James Shug, chief economist over at Westpac. Morning to you, James.
Morning.
Rajoy last night in New York. We know what we have to do, and since we know it, we're doing it. What do you think is going to happen today?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think the budget will achieve the deficit reduction that it aims to. I think it will be deeply unpopular with the people in Spain, and you didn't need last night's demonstrations and the night before to make the point. I mean, when half your 20-year-olds can't find a job, you know, there's bound to be social unrest and discontent. So I don't think anyone's really going to win from this budget, I'm afraid.
We've got an Italian bond auction today. The sell-off in Spain yesterday, what does that say to you about how Italy's going to go today?
Well, it'll probably go off a little bit worse or at a higher yield than it might have otherwise done, unless Monti decides to intimate that he might be inclined to go for a bailout, which could see Italian bond yields really fall quite sharply. And it wouldn't be a bad idea because it would kind of straitjacket the incoming elected government when he steps down. Imagine if Berlusconi got back in, for example. I mean, you'd like to have some pretty stringent conditions in place if a bailout for Italy had been made under Monti. So I think that's a possibility, some sort of comment from Monti to try and push him down.
How are you, I want to step back a little bit. How are you guys, you know, in the market, looking at the big picture? Did we price in too much optimism on the upside too soon, do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you've had various Fed officials like Plosser from the Philadelphia Fed saying that he thinks there's more costs than benefits from QE3, won't create jobs, will create inflation. You've got the Bundesbank arguing very vocally now with the European Central Bank, or more specifically Weidmann with Draghi, about the bond buying program there. So if even these institutions, these grand institutions, can't agree and see it very differently, the outcome of the various programs, and of course, you take into account that these programs are put into place because of underlying serious problems, and maybe investors are questioning whether the rallies that followed the announcement of these programs were justified.
You know, I've been asking most of our guests whether, I was at least a week or so ago, whether September's the beginning of the end of this crisis in the Eurozone. What are your feelings generally on that now? Have we taken 5 steps back?
Now, this is the ending of the beginning, okay? The next phase is more leniency from the north, which we still think may come eventually when things get really bad, and the austerity will be replaced by insistence on reform measures, not about the budget numbers as such. The budget numbers don't matter quite as much. I know this will upset the ECB, and particularly the Bundesbank, if there's ECB bond buying, because that in itself will help reduce interest costs. So I think that the focus will not be on trying to get the budget down to a specific number, but it will be you get the bailout, you get the bond buying support, provided you implement reforms that might have a short-term economic cost, but will deliver, you know, the benefits in terms of competitiveness in the longer term.
All right, James, many thanks.
Thanks, mate.
To corporate news now, and the focus is on mining today. In Asia, Baoshan Steel is suspending production at its loss-making plant. Let's get out to Lisa Eurico-Thomas, who joins us from Singapore. Lisa, this is very much linked to weak steel prices, right?
Yes, partly, but as you know, Chinese steelmakers have been hit hard lately with overcapacity, billions of dollars in debt, and prices at 3-year lows. Now, Baoshan is the first major mill to announce the plant suspension, but with Beijing clamping down on property and banks restricting credit, we could see more, say analysts. Beijing did announce a massive infrastructure spending spree recently, but analysts don't expect that to trickle down to the steel market.
And of course, we had recently a record amount of liquidity pumped into the system from the central bank. I guess this is indicative of the sort of support that they're prepared to give.
Right. China pumping $57 billion into the money markets this week. That's to avoid a cash crunch at commercial banks, to meet reserve requirements, and to meet withdrawals ahead of next week's holiday. This means that we're not likely to see an RRR hike anytime soon, and some investors who had been hoping for other kinds of stimulus may be disappointed. Axel?
Okay, Lisa, thanks very much indeed. L'Oréal's chairman and CEO has made his thoughts known on France's proposed 75% tax rate. The Financial Times quotes Jean-Paul Aron as saying the country will find it almost impossible to hire top talent if the government goes ahead with the plan. Details will be revealed tomorrow as part of the budget unveiling. Extradition proceedings begin today for an ex-Credit Suisse trader arrested in London. Karine Serageldin, former global head of structured credit trading at Credit Suisse, faces fraud charges involving subprime mortgage bonds totaling $3 billion. This extradition would mark a victory for the US, which won convictions against 2 other Credit Suisse employees earlier this year. The Paris Car Show kicks off today. Executives attending hoping that budget cars at the show will boost sales among cash-strapped consumers, especially in austerity-hit markets. We will be there interviewing top-notch guests, including the chiefs of Renault, Nissan, Lexus, Daimler, and Rolls-Royce, among others. World news, US Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney is trying to show that he does care about the 47%. On the campaign trail in Ohio, he said his heart aches for the unemployed. He might have a bit further to go, though. In the latest Reuters Ipsos daily tracking poll of likely voters, Romney trails President Obama by 49 to 43%. Finally, J.K. Rowling's first adult novel, The Casual Vacancy, goes on sale today. But the novel from Harry Potter's creator has failed to conjure the same level of enthusiasm that surrounded Tales of the Boy Magician. That is it for now. I'll leave you with our video of the day. These pictures, courtesy of Worldwide Pants, of David Cameron on The David Letterman Show, being quizzed on his knowledge of British history. Take a listen.
Rural Britannia, which is a beautiful refrain, based on a poem by James Thompson. Are you familiar with James Thompson?
Well, I am now. Elgar, I'll go for.
Okay. The sun never sets on the British Empire.
There was a moment when the globe was like a quarter pink.
Yes. Yes.
And that was...
Now, historically, we look back on that period now as just awful, don't we?
I think there was some good bits and there were some less than good bits. Right. And obviously, we had a bit of a falling out.
Right.
At that time. And
it was a misunderstanding.